Imagine losing the highest political office in your state and just days later walking into a courtroom to personally argue a case as a lawyer. That is exactly what Mamata Banerjee, the former chief minister of West Bengal, India, did. On May 15, 2026, she entered the Calcutta High Court, a building whose iconic facade usually oversees standard legal battles rather than the arrival of a recently defeated head of state. She was there to argue a public interest litigation, or PIL, a legal tool used to protect the fundamental rights of citizens, which she filed on behalf of her supporters. Banerjee petitioned the Chief Justice for an immediate intervention, seeking a judicial order to halt a violent crisis currently unfolding across the state. To understand why a woman who held total executive power for years had to rely on a lawyer's gown to be heard, we have to examine the chaotic aftermath of the election she had just lost. Just weeks earlier, during the 2026 West Bengal Assembly Election, millions of citizens cast their ballots in a largely orderly, democratic process. But when the results came in, the political landscape inverted entirely, as the rival BJP claimed a sweeping victory. This animated chart shows the scale of that win, with the bar surging up to represent 207 seats secured by the BJP. Comparing that against the left side, we see the crushing reality for Banerjee's TMC party, holding on to only 80 seats. That wide margin of defeat immediately stripped Banerjee of her authority over the state apparatus. She could no longer give orders to the local police or mobilize emergency infrastructure. Without executive power, her political base was suddenly vulnerable to retaliation from emboldened opponents. The transition of power quickly bled out of the assembly halls and onto the streets of Calcutta, breaking down into violent retaliatory turf wars. According to the details filed in Banerjee's litigation, the most severe consequence of this unrest was the targeted killing of 10 TMC party workers. Alongside the lethal violence, a secondary crisis erupted as massive numbers of everyday citizens were chased out of their neighborhoods. The attackers also targeted livelihoods, systematically driving supporters out of their shops and commercial properties. These displaced citizens had nowhere to turn, and the leader they had voted for was now sitting in the opposition, legally powerless to send state resources to protect them. The volume of people losing their homes and businesses indicated a widespread collapse of public order, forcing Banerjee to find an alternative way to trigger a state response. Back inside the High Court, the Chief Justice's bench listened to these arguments from the former Chief Minister. The court agreed that action was required and issued interim directions legally compelling the West Bengal police to immediately mobilize. As we can see in this map visualization, the judge's order was deliberately nonpartisan. The police were instructed to ensure that all of these differently colored dots, representing displaced individuals from any political affiliation, were safely escorted back to their homes. Executing that order places a massive logistical burden on local authorities, who now have to identify, locate, and physically protect thousands of scattered residents. It also highlights a deep fracture in the system. Because the newly elected government failed to maintain order during the transition, the judicial branch had to step in to guarantee basic physical safety. For Banerjee, putting on the lawyer's gown was the pragmatic adaptation of a politician who had lost her traditional levers of control. This outcome suggests that when a democratic transition fails to ensure basic safety, the responsibility for protecting the public migrates from the executive branch to the courtroom, which leaves us with a difficult question to consider. If the political systems you rely on failed to protect your community, what extremes would you expect your own leaders to go to?